I've been tracking California's housing numbers for months now, and this one stopped me cold. In 2025, California actually shrank. The whole state lost around 54,000 people, and 333 of its cities lost population outright. And yet, one town grew so fast, it became the #1 fastest-growing city in the entire state. A town that didn't even legally exist 2 years ago. I'll say that again. It wasn't a city until July of 2024, and now it's outrunning everywhere else in California. That's not a fluke. It's a pattern. And if you actually want the truth about where California's housing is headed, not headlines, the real numbers, do me one favor and hit subscribe, because this stuff hits your wallet whether you're watching or not. Number 12. Wildomar. Let's start with a town most people outside Southern California have never heard of. Wildomar, in Riverside County. Last year it grew almost 4%, call it 3.9, which pushed it to around 38,800 people and made it the third fastest growing city in California, with more than 30,000 residents. Now here's the thing. It did that in a year the whole state lost people. Let that sit for a second. While California was leaking population, this little half-rural pocket was filling up faster than 99% of the cities in the state. But watch what happened underneath the growth. The median home in Wildomar runs around $670,000, and it's actually down about 4% year over year. So more people are moving in, and prices are softening at the same time. Meanwhile, rents kept climbing, up around 6%, sitting near $3,300 a month. You feel the squeeze on both ends there. Buyers get a little relief, renters get none. Here's who's actually moving to Wildomar. Families priced out of Temecula and Murrieta right next door. They come for more house per dollar, and they inherit the I-15 commute and a town that still has horse property and 2-lane roads trying to act like a real city. I've seen this pattern before, and it always goes the same way. A pasture becomes 120 stucco homes in a single building season, and the people who moved there for the open feel are the first ones to miss it. Honestly, of everyone on this list, Wildomar is the mildest case. It's growth that's stretching, not yet breaking. The road's grown, the town scrambles, but nobody's in crisis. If it were my money, I'd still want to know exactly which subdivision I was buying into, because affordable out here is relative, and it's shrinking a little every year. What makes Wildomar interesting isn't drama, it's the early warning signal. This is what the beginning of an out-of-control boom looks like. Quiet, green hills, new beige rooftops pressed right up against old horse fencing, all of it fed by one overwhelmed main road. It's the town before the town gets loud. And that's exactly why it's only number 12. Because compared to what's coming, this is the gentle version. The next one is in the single fastest-growing county in the entire state, and it's pulling in retirees and young commuters at the same time, from two completely different directions. Let me show you. Number 11. Lincoln. Now we go north, to Placer County. And this matters, because Placer was the #1 fastest-growing county in all of California last year, at around 1.4%. That doesn't sound huge until you remember the state was shrinking. Sitting right inside that county is Lincoln, which climbed to roughly 56,500 people. And Lincoln has a growth engine that's honestly kind of unusual, which I'll get to. First, the money. New master-planned communities out here, places like Placer 1, are selling brand-new homes from the high 400,000s up into the 600,000s. The median sale price sits near $612,000, and the wider county's listing median is up around $739,000. Builders like KB Home are opening fresh phases constantly. And here's the tell that demand is still hot. Pending sales were up double digits year over year, even as prices flattened across the state. That's a town swallowing new inventory without a price collapse. For now. So who's flooding in? This is the part I find fascinating. Lincoln pulls two totally different crowds at once. On one side, retirees. Sun City Lincoln Hills is a massive active adult community out here. On the other side, young families commuting into Sacramento who got priced out of Roseville and Rocklin. Grandparents and first-time buyers landing in the same zip code for opposite reasons. You don't see that everywhere. But growth like this always has a bill attached. And in Lincoln, the bill is Highway 65. That corridor was rural farmland not that long ago. Now it carries boomtown traffic, and it backs up at rush hour the way a country road was never meant to. The shopping and the services are lagging the rooftops, which is the recurring theme of this entire list. The houses always arrive first, and everything humans actually need shows up years later. Here's my honest read. Lincoln is one of the healthier booms on this list. It's got real jobs nearby, real demand, and it hasn't overbuilt itself into a corner yet. If you told me you were buying here, I wouldn't wince. I'd just tell you to drive the commute at 7:30 on a Tuesday before you sign anything, because the brochure doesn't show you that part. Picture it. A former ag town where a brand new subdivision opens practically every year, and a two-lane country highway now sits bumper to bumper at sunrise. Growth you can see from the road. But Lincoln's still a big city compared to what's next. The next one is tiny. And when a town this small grows this fast, the thing everyone loves about it is exactly what's on the chopping block. Number 10. Winters. Here's where percentages start playing tricks on you. Winters, in Yolo County, near Davis, grew about 4.1% last year, one of the fastest rates in the entire Sacramento region. But Winters is small. We're talking a town that was around 7,500 people not long ago, now pushing past 9,000. And when a town is that small, growth hits differently. Adding a few hundred homes barely registers in a big city. In Winters, it changes the whole character. That's the story here, and it's why I put it on the list, even though the raw numbers look modest. Because 4% a year in a town of 9,000 is a countdown clock on everything that makes Winters, Winters. It's got a genuine tree-lined main street, a real walkable downtown, the kind people actually move to a small town hoping to find. It sits within reach of Davis, Sacramento, even the Bay Area if you're willing to drive. So the demand is there, and new tract housing is going up on the old walnut and almond fields at the edge of town. Now here's the tension, and it's real. The exact thing pulling people in, that small town, everybody knows your name feel, is the first casualty of the growth. You can't add hundreds of new households a year to a town this size and keep it feeling like it did. It's not possible. Something gives. And the people who've lived there for decades can feel it happening in real time. I'll be honest with you. The price data on Winters is thinner than the bigger cities, so I'm not going to throw out a precise median I can't stand behind. Call it somewhere in the mid-500,000s to low 600,000s, in line with Yolo County. The story here isn't the exact number anyway. The story is what happens to a small town's soul when it grows faster than it can absorb. My take? Winters is the one I'd watch most carefully if I loved it. Small towns don't get to grow 4% a year and stay charming by accident. It takes deliberate planning, and most towns don't manage it. The next 5 years decide whether Winters keeps its main street or just becomes another exit off the highway with a familiar name. Picture a classic California farm town. Old brick storefronts, one good coffee shop, walnut orchards at the edges. And now picture those orchards turning into cul-de-sacs. That's the whole thing in one image. Next, we head to the desert. And in the desert, the trade-offs get a lot more serious. Number 9. Coachella and the East Valley. Let's talk about heat, and I mean that literally. The Coachella Valley's growth has shifted east, toward Coachella and Indio, because that's where the last relatively affordable desert land is. Coachella pushed up to around 45,000 people, growing about 1.5%, while its wealthier western neighbors like Palm Springs and Rancho Mirage stayed flat or even dipped. Read that again. The rich part of the valley is holding still. The working part is booming. Here's the money picture. Coachella's median listing price is around $550,000, and detached homes across the valley run closer to $625,000. But the market's clearly cooling. Homes now take 2 to 3 months to sell, as inventory piles up, so you've got a strange split. People are still moving east, but the sales pace is slowing down, growth outrunning the market's ability to keep up with it. That gap is where things get uncomfortable for people who bought at the top. And the human side of this one is heavier than the earlier towns. This is where working families, farm workers, and people priced out of the West Valley can still actually buy new construction. That's a real opportunity. I won't pretend it isn't. But the trade-offs are brutal and honest. Summer temperatures over 115 degrees. Long drives to the jobs in the West Valley. And a water supply question hanging over the entire region that nobody's fully answered. Let me give you my straight opinion. The affordability here is real, and for a lot of families it's the only door into homeownership that's open. I respect that, but I'd go in with both eyes open. You're not just buying a house. You're buying a summer that lasts half the year, and an air conditioning bill that reflects it. That's not doom talk. That's just the math of living in the desert, and the brochures skip it. Here's the image that sticks with me. Brand new subdivisions rising straight out of raw desert on the far edge of the valley. Air-conditioned boxes, standing where date palms and open sand were a year ago. Growth measured against triple-digit heat, and a sky that doesn't quit. So that's the desert version of out of control. Growth that's spreading faster than the region's water and climate can comfortably carry. It's a slower-burning problem than the ones coming up, but it's a real one. Next, we're back in the Inland Empire, and I'm going to show you 2 towns split by a single street, where crossing one road changes the price of the exact same house by $200,000. It's one of the wildest things on this list. Number 8. Banning. This one's almost funny, except it's not, because it's real money. Banning in Riverside County grew about 2.5% to around 32,000 people, which landed it on the state's top 10 list of fastest-growing cities, over 30,000. And the reason it's growing is sitting right next door, a town we'll get to later called Beaumont. As Beaumont filled up and got expensive, the overflow tumbled straight downhill into Banning. Now here's the detail that makes this town worth your time. Locals have a running conversation about it. You can cross a single street, Highland Springs Avenue, and the exact same square footage costs roughly $200,000 less on the Banning side. Same freeway, same pass, same wind, same heat, different price tag by 200 grand. Banning homes land somewhere in the high 300,000s to mid 400,000s, while Beaumont sits in the mid 500,000s. One street. That's it. That price gap is the entire growth story. People aren't moving to Banning because of a marketing campaign. They're moving there because it's the cheapest door into the booming San Gorgonio Pass, and they're willing to take the trade to get in. Older housing stock. A downtown that's rougher around the edges. The same windy, hot climate as the pricier town up the road, but hundreds of dollars less every single month on the payment. And that's who Banning is really for. The budget-stretched first-time buyer and the retiree who genuinely cannot afford the town next door. Not, would rather not, cannot. For a lot of these folks, Banning isn't a preference. It's the only version of homeownership within reach. My honest take? I actually respect Banning for what it is. It's not pretending to be fancy. It's the affordable option in an expensive corridor, and there's dignity in that. But I'd want a buyer to understand they're getting the older, grittier version of the pass, and to be at peace with that going in. If you're expecting Beaumont's new build shine at banning prices, you're going to be disappointed. Set the expectation right, and it's a genuinely smart buy. The picture here is simple and kind of powerful. A single avenue running through the pass, and on one side of it, a family can afford a house, and on the other side, they can't. A line on a map that quietly decides someone's whole future. All right. Next, we go to a town where growth already finished, and now the town is drowning in the aftermath. This is the growth hangover, and it's a warning for every place we've talked about so far. Number 7. Eastvale. Eastvale is the cautionary tale of this whole list, and I want you to pay attention to it, because it's where a lot of these other towns are headed. Eastvale, in Riverside County, sits at around 70,500 people now. But rewind 20 years, and this was dairy farms, open pasture, cows. In 2 decades it went from that to one of the most in-demand family suburbs in the Inland Empire. And now, this is the key part, city officials basically admit the town is built out, full, the growth is done. So what's the problem, right? If it's full, isn't the chaos over? Nope. This is where it gets real. The houses filled up years ago, but the roads didn't catch up. So now the city's entire job has flipped, from building homes to desperately trying to unclog itself. They're pouring millions into projects like a $13.5 million road gap closure, plus citywide street fixes, while the region spends $137 million on a nearby freeway connector between the 71 and the 91. That's reactive money. That's a town spending a fortune trying to fix a problem it created by growing too fast. Here's the ground-level reality, and residents say it out loud. They got the big new homes. They got the good schools. That part delivered. But now they sit in daily gridlock on roads that were designed for a fraction of the traffic they carry, and safety complaints keep climbing. Eastvale is the after photo. It's what spiraling out of control looks like once the spiral stops spinning and the bill comes due. And this is exactly why I ranked it here. Eastvale isn't dramatic anymore. Prices are high, incomes are high, the homes are nice. On paper, it looks like a success story. But talk to someone who lives there about their evening commute across town, and you'll hear the truth. The growth was the fun part. Living with it is the hard part. My take, plainly, Eastvale should be required viewing for every fast-growing town on this list. Because the mistake wasn't building the homes. It was building all of them before the roads, before the connectors, before the infrastructure that turns a subdivision into a functioning place. Everyone loves the ribbon cutting. Nobody wants to pay for the road 10 years late. Picture it. Street after street of nice, established suburban homes, and one main artery so jammed at 5 p.m. that a 2-mile trip eats 25 minutes. Land people remember as dairy pasture, now so packed the city's biggest project is just moving cars. Next up, we hit the town that made Bay Area exodus a household phrase, and where the market just turned on the very people who fled there. Number 6. Manteca. Manteca is where the Bay Area went to escape, and where the escape plan is starting to wobble. This San Joaquin County city sits at around 93,700 people, and ranked number 6 in the entire state for growth. Here's a number that tells you everything about the kind of growth it is. In 2025, 100% of its new housing was single-family homes, over 800 of them. This isn't apartments. This is subdivision after subdivision of houses for families getting out of the Bay. But now the twist, and it's the reason Manteca sits this high. The market turned. The median sale price is around $595,000 to $600,000, and it's down anywhere from 4 to 8.5% year over year, depending on which month you look at. So picture this. People are still moving in, and home values are falling at the same time. That's the exact tension this whole video is about. A town growing in population while shrinking in value. Let me put you on the ground. Manteca's got families who bought during the pandemic rush, took on big mortgages to escape Bay Area rent, and are now watching neighbors list their homes for less than they paid. On Zillow, the price-reduced tags are stacking up. And the commute? Oh, the commute. Highway 120's interchange out to the Bay is a legendary choke point, mid-rebuild, a $48 million project with overnight closures and years of delays. So the daily reality is a 5 a.m. wake-up and a crawl over the pass to reach the job that pays for the house that's losing value. Yeah, it's that layered. Here's my honest read on Manteca. The people who moved here weren't foolish. They made a rational bet to trade a landlord for equity. But timing is everything in housing, and a chunk of them bought at the top and are now underwater-ish while stuck with the commute. That's a rough spot. Not a catastrophe, but a "this hurts" spot. If you're buying here today, honestly, the falling prices might work in your favor. Just don't expect quick appreciation. The image that stays with me is that interchange at dawn, brake lights stacked up over the 120, full of people who left one expensive life for a cheaper one and found out cheaper came with its own price. Quick thing before we keep going. The next few towns are rougher than everything we've covered. One of them has air quality bad enough that NASA-funded researchers measured it, and the number one town genuinely made me reread the data twice. If you haven't subscribed yet, now's the moment, because it only gets more intense from here. Number 5. Menifee. Menifee is the town where the growth became the identity, and not in a good way. Riverside County's fastest-growing city, now sitting around 117,800 people, adding roughly 2,000 residents a year, and it made the state's top 10 for sheer numeric growth. But here's what tells you the real story. The residents themselves have made traffic and stoplights a running community obsession. Go find the local groups online. That's what people talk about. Not schools, not crime, how long it takes to get anywhere now. And the city knows it. Menifee is spending over $484 million on infrastructure and traffic fixes over 5 years. Let that sink in. Nearly $500 million from one mid-sized town just trying to catch up to its own growth. That's not a vanity project. That's an admission that the town got ahead of itself. The money side is almost the calm part of this story. The median sale price is around $573,000 to $586,000, basically flat to slightly down year over year. So Menifee's problem isn't a price crash, it's raw volume. It exploded 32% over the last decade, and it just keeps stacking people onto roads and into schools built for a much smaller place. The prices held, the infrastructure didn't. Here's who's moving in and why. Southern California families who want a big, newish house for well under coastal prices. That's the dream, and Menifee delivers it. The house is real. The value is real. The catch is everything around the house. Gridlocked intersections, schools stretching to fit. That constant, grinding sense that the town is always one step behind where it already is. My take, Menifee is the clearest example on this list of a specific trap. The house can be a great deal, and the town can still be exhausting to live in. Those two things are allowed to be true at once, and buyers forget that. They tour a beautiful new home on a quiet Sunday afternoon and never once sit in the Monday morning left-turn line that defines daily life there. Drive it on a weekday, please, before you fall in love. Picture a brand new subdivision, gorgeous homes, and then picture the single intersection everyone has to use to leave it. Backed up 3 light cycles deep at 8 a.m. That's Menifee's real portrait. Not the house, the intersection. Next, we go back to the pass, to Beaumont, the other half of that $200,000 street. And Beaumont has a hidden cost buried in the paperwork that catches new buyers completely off guard. Number 4. Beaumont. Remember Banning? This is the expensive twin. Beaumont, in Riverside County, which is, by the way, California's #1 fastest-growing large county, went from a sleepy past town to a wall-to-wall new construction machine. It's pushing 60,000 people, up around 17% since the last census. And the typical home value reportedly jumped almost 30% in a single year. That's a staggering leap. But that number's a little misleading, and I want to be straight with you about why. That 30% is inflated by a flood of higher-priced new construction hitting the market. The actual median sale price sits around $540,000 to $550,000. But here's the part that catches people. The part nobody puts in the listing photos. A lot of Beaumont homes carry what's called mellow roofs. It's a special community facilities tax layered on top of your regular property tax and your mortgage. It pays for the new roads and schools the subdivisions require, and it can add hundreds of dollars to your monthly cost. You want proof it matters? Listings in Beaumont literally advertise low mellow roofs as a selling point, and those homes command a premium. Think about that. The absence of an extra tax is a feature you pay more for. That tells you exactly how much the tax stings on the homes that carry the full load. Here's the human reality. Beaumont sells the entry-level Southern California dream, a brand new house in the high 400,000s to 500,000s. Young families jump on it, and a lot of them don't fully understand that the mortgage is only half their monthly picture. They budget for the loan, they get the keys, and then the full tax bill arrives and reframes everything. The house was affordable. The house plus the special assessment? Different conversation. My honest opinion, and I'll say this carefully, mellow roofs isn't a scam. It's a legitimate way to fund the infrastructure that fast growth demands. But it puts the cost of that growth directly onto the newest buyers, the ones with the least cushion, and it's often glossed over at the sales office. If you're buying in Beaumont, ask for the exact special tax number in writing before you fall for the granite countertops. Every time. Picture endless identical rooflines climbing the pass, all marketed as affordable, and a buyer at the kitchen table, keys in hand, opening a tax statement they didn't see coming. That's the Beaumont story in one frame. Now it gets serious. The next town isn't just growing in people, it's growing in something you breathe. And a NASA-funded study put a number on it. Number 3. Perris. Perris is where growth stops being about people and starts being about your lungs. This Riverside County city sits around 81,000 residents. But the population isn't the real story here. It's what's growing around the homes. Warehouses. Enormous ones. So many, so fast, that city officials actually hit pause on new warehouse projects because residents rose up over diesel pollution, asthma, and truck traffic that never, ever stops. Here's the scale, and it's genuinely hard to wrap your head around. The Inland Empire, with Perris right at its heart, handles nearly 40% of all the imported consumer goods in the entire country. Think about that next time a package lands on your porch. A lot of it moved through here. And that movement has a cost that lands on the people who live nearby. NASA-funded research found that communities next to these giant warehouses see roughly a 20% spike in nitrogen dioxide in their air. UC Davis documented over 300 California warehouses sitting within 1,000 feet of homes, schools, or hospitals. It got bad enough that California passed a brand new law in 2025 specifically to rein in warehouse clusters and truck traffic. Now let me bring this down to a front porch. Families in Perris are living inside the machinery of American e-commerce. Walls of gray distribution centers where fields used to be. Loading docks beeping through the night. Diesel trucks idling past their kids' schools. And they report the asthma rates that come with it. This is the darkest trade-off on the entire list. And I don't say that lightly. The growth here isn't just clogging roads. It's measurably affecting people's health. Here's my honest, no spin take. Warehouses bring jobs, and Perris needed jobs. I'm not going to stand here and pretend those paychecks don't matter to real families. But there's a line between growth that lifts a town and growth that sacrifices it. And Perris walked right up to that line. When your city has to legally stop the thing that's fueling its economy because it's making people sick, that's not a boom anymore. That's a warning siren. And the fact that it took a state law to force the conversation tells you how far it went before anyone hit the brakes. The image I can't shake is simple. A child's asthma inhaler on a kitchen counter. Outside the window, a warehouse wall where the sunrise used to be. That's the true price of 2-day shipping, and somebody's paying it right now. 2 towns left, both in the Central Valley, both growing at more than triple the rate that would already be considered fast. And number 2 is watching brand new homes destroy the value of the ones sold just a year before. Number 2, Lathrop and River Islands. Lathrop grew 5.6% last year. Let me put that in perspective. That's nearly 40 times the statewide average. In a year, the state was shrinking. It tied for the second fastest growing city in all of California, climbing to around 41,000 people. And almost all of it is being driven by one massive development called River Islands. But here's the brutal twist, and it's the whole reason Lathrop sits at number 2. It built so fast that new construction is now flooding its own market, and prices in River Islands have reportedly dropped anywhere from 6% to as much as 21%. Sit with that. This is a town growing at warp speed, and the growth itself is what's crashing the value. The citywide median list price is in the low to mid 700,000s. But River Island's home values are down around 6% year over year on the firm data, with some analyses claiming much steeper drops as builders keep releasing fresh, cheaper inventory right next to people who already bought. And rents in the Manteca-Lathrop area? Up nearly 20% since 2020, around $2,100. So buyers are losing equity while renters get squeezed harder. Same town, same time. Here's where it gets personal, and honestly, a little heartbreaking. River Islands was sold as a waterfront paradise. Lakes, top schools, brand new everything, a dream community. But go read what early buyers are saying online. Some feel flat-out conned. They're still waiting on the promised shopping center and the hospital that was supposed to come, while a brand new model home opens a block away and quietly undercuts the price of the house they already own. You can lose money on your home while the town around you is still booming. That's not supposed to happen. In Lathrop it is. My take, and I feel strongly about this one, the danger of a single developer boomtown is that the builder controls the price. When they want to move new inventory, they cut prices on the new stuff, and your resale home is collateral damage. You're not competing with other sellers. You're competing with the same company that sold you your house, and they have deeper pockets and more lots. That's a rough position to be in, and a lot of good people didn't see it coming. Picture a family standing in their River Islands driveway, watching a shiny new model home open down the street for less than they paid. The promised hospital still just a sign on an empty lot. Their equity evaporating in real time, in paradise. And now, the number 1 town, the one that genuinely made me stop and reread the data. Slow down with me for this one, because it's the strangest story on the list. Number 1, Mountain House. Here it is, the single fastest growing city in the entire state of California. And I want you to really hear what makes it number 1, because it's not just a statistic, it's almost unbelievable. Mountain House, in San Joaquin County, is the number 1 fastest growing city in California. It grew 5.6% last year, adding over 1,600 people, to reach around 30,700 residents. It's outrunning 97% of the cities in the state. And here's the kicker, the thing that made me put down my coffee. It only became a city in July of 2024. Read that again. 2 years ago, This place was not legally a city. It was empty San Joaquin ranchland with a master plan and a dream. And now it's growing faster than every other city California has. There's barely a historical baseline to even measure it against. It went from nothing to a top-ranked boomtown almost overnight. If you want a definition of growth spiraling out of control, this is it. Not decline, not a crash, a town materializing from raw dirt faster than anywhere else in the state. Let me give you the money picture, because it's just as wild. New homes here are marketed from the low 600,000s and climb well past $1 million, with some new construction communities running 800,000 to over $1 million. And here's a number that stopped me cold. Reporting has pointed to the average mountain house homeowner carrying something like $122,000 in debt. That's a snapshot of how deeply leveraged this instant town really is. These aren't people who stumbled into cheap housing. These are Bay Area commuters who stretched hard to buy new in a place they could sort of afford, an hour or more from where they work. Now walk through it with me, because the human story here is the whole point. Mountain House was built on purpose. San Joaquin County planned it from day one to become a city, engineered specifically to catch the overflow of people who couldn't afford the Bay Area anymore. And the residents got exactly what they were promised. Pristine parks, new schools, brand new everything, laid out clean and orderly. On paper, it's a success. It's the dream, delivered. But here's the part that gets me. This is a city so new it's still building the basic muscles of local government, the thing it only voted to become in 2024. And every single morning, thousands of those residents wake up before dawn and drive west over the Altamont Pass into the same expensive region they fled, to earn the money that pays for the house that only exists because they couldn't afford one closer to work. Think about that loop. They ran from the Bay Area's prices, and now they commute back into it every single day. The escape and the trap are the same road. My honest, final take on all of this? Mountain House isn't a disaster. Let me be clear about that. It's not falling apart, and the people there mostly love it. But it's the purest example of what this whole video is about. Growth so fast, so engineered, so far ahead of where anyone actually works, that the town exists in a strange bubble of new stucco and dark early morning commutes. It's a city built for a life that happens somewhere else. And it's the fastest growing one in the state. That combination, brand new, deeply leveraged, and dependent on a brutal daily drive, is exactly why it's number one. Picture an entire city that didn't legally exist 2 years ago. Identical new rooftops stretching to the horizon, and at 5 a.m., a river of headlights pouring west over the pass. Thousands of people leaving the town they moved to reach the jobs that let them afford it. That's the fastest growing city in California. Let that sink in. So there they are, 12 California towns growing so fast, the roads, the schools, the air, and even the prices can't keep up. And here's what I keep coming back to. In a state that's actually losing people, these are the pressure points where everyone landed at once. Now I want to hear from you. If even one of these towns is where you live, or where you were about to buy, tell me in the comments. Seriously, I read them, and the local details you all add are better than half my research. Send this to the one person you know who's about to sign paperwork somewhere on this list, because they need to see it first. And subscribe, because I dig into this stuff every single week, and California's map is changing faster than anyone's admitting. One town didn't exist 2 years ago. Makes you wonder what the list looks like next year, doesn't it?